Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm Melissa Samuels, Director of Alumni Programs for the UAlbany Alumni Association. I'm glad you could join us tonight for our webinar on how to land a dream job in sports. Before we get started, I wanted to go over just two housekeeping items. We are recording this session, so you'll have access to it once I post it, and I'll let you know that. Also, we will be doing a Q&A at the end of the session. So if you have questions for our panelists, please put them in the Q&A, not in the chat. They're likely to get overlooked there. So now I'd like to welcome our panel. Larry Berger is going to be moderating for us tonight. Larry's from the class of '92. He has worked in sports for many years and knows just how difficult it is to break into this field. He came to me, offered to put together this panel for UAlbany students, and I'm very grateful that he did, and very grateful to his friends and colleagues that are joining us tonight. So I will turn it over to you, Larry.
Melissa, thank you so much. I am so honored to be here. I have so many great memories of the University at Albany. Go Danes! I vividly remember my first job was at the NBA, and I was hired by Don Sperling, who also went to the University at Albany. And we had that kinship. We shared that kinship for many years. So I'm honored to be here and so thankful to speak to you, the students at the University at Albany. So today our panelists they're the A-list. They represent major brands, the NFL, ESPN, Disney, and USA Today. They represent a small sample of sports careers. But what's interesting and what brings it all together is that no matter what industry in sports that you want to pursue, it's competitive. It's ultra competitive, and you need to know the rules of engagement, and you need to know the best possible ways to land a job in this ultra competitive field. And that's really the goal of today, to put you in the best position to land a job while maintaining strong mental health. As Melissa mentioned, please place your questions in the Q&A, and we'll get to them probably around 8 p.m. today. So like I mentioned, a great lineup. There's tons of experience here in these four panelists. And above all, they've accomplished so much, but above all, they're absolutely wonderful, wonderful people. So let's start. Peter, let's start with you. I want to relay a story that involves Peter. I got laid off from the NBA after 16 and a half years there. And the first person I called was Peter, who was and is still working at the NFL. And he was just absolutely wonderful. You really realize that those that are responsive when you need them, there's a select few that always goes to bat, are always there for you. And Peter is one of those people. So my first question to Peter is about being a good person and how important it is. There's a lot of talented people in sports in all facets of the sports industry, but how important is it to be a kind, good person in order to land that entry-level position and to evolve within an organization?
Thanks, Larry. And that says as much about you as it does about me in terms of the respect I have for you. And thanks for having us here. And thanks to all the students. It's great to be a part of this. And just to that question about being a good person, implied in that question somewhere is probably this note that if I'm a good person, maybe I'm not tough enough, or I'm not hard-nosed enough, or I'm not, competitive enough. But if you replaced person in that sentence about, does it matter to be a good teammate to be successful in sports? I think everyone would say, of course. So, I look at the people with whom I work as teammates, and all of those things that matter in life matter here. Character matters. Values matter. Trust matters. Building trust and respect. And it's interesting you asked me that, because there have been times in my career where people have said that, oh, you're such a nice guy. How are you, able to navigate the hard-nosed world of sports? And my answer to that is those things aren't incongruous. You can be good to people. You can treat people well. and then pick those spots where you're not a good person, but you show your toughness, where you've got to, have a backbone and, and hold your ground on something that you feel passionate about. So 100%. And I think coming into it, bringing your true self and your values and your character and your whole self to any conversation as you're entering the industry, that's going to gain respect. And people want to find joy around people who are themselves and are bringing that to the table every day. And that's where I've tried to operate. And we all slip up, and we all have days and moments where we're like, I shouldn't have done that, or that's a bad move. But this industry, like every industry, it's not Pollyanna. It rewards people who treat people well, and that's how you treat your teammate. When you're on the field, on the court, when you're coaching, you got to be true teammates, and that means having each other's back. So I've tried to live that. You've lived that, Larry. I know our panelists have. And it sounds simple. It's not simple, but it matters. It matters.
So well put. And I think another way to look at it is the decision makers are going to be with that person that they hire for so much time, 40, 50, 60 hours a week. They want to be with people that they like, that they respect and like. And I think, that's another aspect. Of course, you should be a good person because you want to be a good person and lead a good life. But I think it definitely gives you an edge because those that are going to hire you want to be around good people.
For sure.
Let me.
No, sorry, sure. That's for sure. That is
sure.
Goes through my head all the time in terms of I'm going to spend a lot of time with this person, and are they going to be there, and they're going to, or do they have the values and the commitment and you spend a lot of time together, and it's not just are they going to tell me what I'm going to hear. Do I want to be around them because they're going to challenge me and they're going to bring a different perspective to the table? So that's a huge part of the hiring process is, I spend more time with my close employees than I do with my kids on most weeks. So that is real. So anyway, sorry to interrupt you, Larry.
I could only imagine how many hours and how many people you're with for so long, preparing for the draft or the Super Bowl or all these other events. So I think that really drives it home, the amount of hours that are put into all this, all these great events. And you're around people, you want to be around people that you like and respect. Mackenzie Salmon, who I work alongside at USA Today, she's interviewed the biggest names in sports history. She's covered Super Bowls. She's covered NBA Finals, World Series. Mackenzie, I'd love for you to tell the people here about your unique career path. You started in Mississippi, and then you ended up in New York working for USA Today, have built a tremendous career for yourself. Talk a little bit about the path and any advice that you've gained throughout thus far in your career about getting into the industry and working your way up.
Yeah. Want to reiterate what Peter said. Thank you for letting me be here and speaking. I really appreciate it. I'm honored to be here. But yeah, speaking a little bit about my journey getting to where I am today. So I went to Indiana University, and while I was there, thankfully, a program we had there was being able to do sideline reporting for Big Ten Network. It was a student-run program and got a lot of really good hands-on experience for my reel. And if you guys don't know what a reel is, basically, a lot of people on TV, once you graduate, you want to have clips of some of your best work to be able to give out to either recruiters or potential employers to just highlight what you've done. So thankfully, I got a lot of that experience under my belt when I graduated. And my first job out of college was actually being a sports videographer in Jackson, Mississippi. I'd never been to Mississippi before, had no idea what I was in for. All I knew was football was life for those people down there. And to be honest, coming from Indiana, as you can imagine, football was not really our sport. Basketball is, of course, our big sport there. So I was like, sure, let's do it. It's going to be a building block for me. And it wasn't the dream job that I wanted, but I think it was very important for me because I learned a lot while I was in Mississippi that helped me to get the job that I have today now in New York, being the sports host, working with Larry at USA Today. And I worked there for about 1.5 years, almost 2 years, got to meet some amazing people, got to cover College World Series for Mississippi State, got to cover Ole Miss, a little bit of LSU when they went to the national championship with Joe Burrow and them. And it was a blessing. I learned so much, got to do tons of behind the camera content, make some really good enterprise stories, some cool social bits. And thankfully, my job down there allowed me to kind of do my own thing, which was nice because I got to make mistakes early on a little bit lesser of a platform than I am now, and got to really learn how to find my voice, how to make relations with coaches, players, families, and taught me a lot. And after being there for about 1.5 years, almost 2 years, a agent came into my inbox and messaged me and really liked my stuff and told me that there was a job opportunity up in New York for USA Today Network. And weirdly enough, the newspaper I was at in Mississippi was owned by USA Today, but I had no idea about the job opportunity, which was kind of weird because when he told me, I'm like, I had no idea about that. You'd think, being in the company, I would know, but it worked out the way that it did, and did the interview for USA Today. And I think one of the cool things that I learned after my interview with them that they told me that they really liked about my interview and about me was that they could tell I was very willing to learn. I didn't come in acting like I knew everything. I was, here to tell people what to do. I was very willing to learn. And I think that was, if I could give one big piece of advice, it is, be willing to learn with whatever job you're going through. Every step of the way, you're going to learn a little bit of something that's going to help develop you into what you're going to be in 10 years. And you really want to take advantage of all those opportunities that you are given. And even if it's not the dream job that you want, there are a lot of things that you can learn from it. So now I've been in New York for about 4 years now, which is crazy. I moved here during COVID, which at the time seemed a little, I guess I'd say bad timing. I thought it was horrible timing, but slowly got to learn the city, which was awesome. Coming from Indiana, Mississippi to a big city, it was a blessing. And working alongside people like Larry have been amazing. He's got such institutional knowledge. He's shown me, the team I work with are so creative. They're very supportive and have learned so many amazing things now, being more in front of the camera than anything, but just having that knowledge of how to direct, how I want something shot, being able to script up stuff, talk to coaches, players, and build upon those relations that I already had, covering DK Metcalf and AJ Brown in Mississippi when they were in college to now covering them in the NFL is just a full circle moment. And going back to kind of what Peter said, being just a kind human being and building those relationships is so important because the world is a lot smaller of a place than you think. And a lot of the media people you meet early on in your career, you'll end up meeting on later down the road. So you never want to burn a bridge if possible. So I hope that answered your question, Larry.
Absolutely. And I think you brought up a very interesting point, which is the importance of having a diverse skill set, knowing how to do everything, especially when you're starting out. And we'll get to that. But first, let me get to John. John McLeod with ESPN. He does fantastic work. But the thing that really sticks out to me, in addition to the great productions that he puts together for social in particular, is that he leads ESPN Trust, which focuses on the mental health of the employees. And I think that's a wonderful thing, a wonderful aspect that he does at ESPN. And we'll touch on mental health a little bit further on. But first, John, I want to talk about a popular misconception that young people have, and that is to be the most skilled person, considering that the pinnacle, the most important part of landing a job. You have to be the most skilled. And of course, you have to be skilled. But I want to ask you, John, would you agree that you also have to be likable, helpful, possess complementary skills? Those aspects are as important, or perhaps even more important, than being the most skilled in a particular role. Would you agree with that, John?
Completely, Larry. I think, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that skill that you just pointed out. I don't think any of us would be here because at the end of the day, the truth is we could almost learn almost any skill. But what we can't teach is you being a great teammate. We can't teach you being a person that shows love, that is there to support, that is there to help a teammate. That's okay, not being the best person in the room, but willing to be like Mackenzie and willing to learn and to help the entire team, or like Peter, and reaching out and lifting up a friend when they're in need. You can't teach that. That has to be within you. And those are the things that are intangible uh superpowers that are invaluable. I've said this to so many people that, I've interviewed for jobs with me, that I've had a conversation with in the industry, and 10 times out of 10, all the decision makers, they all say the same thing. I would rather have somebody that I like and I can be in the trenches with and that I can trust, than having anybody that is just really skilled at something, because there's a level of interpersonal skills that one must possess in order to transition from problem to problem. The reason why I say problem to problem, because everything the way you look at your job, the way you look at what you're doing in life, is solving a problem for an employer. And you must understand, to effectively solve a problem, you have to attack that problem in different ways. The job itself, the literal job itself, is a job posting, aka a problem posting. The organization would never post it if they didn't need somebody to solve that problem. They need a person with the skills listed, but the interpersonal skills that can transition and help build up the team, because no company wants to stay the same. They want somebody to add value to help solve that problem. So if you're going to be a phenomenal reporter, then you got to be able to solve a problem for them. And what are they saying? The question could be, how do I identify the problem? Well, it's in the job posting. We're looking for somebody to do X, Y, and Z. And they may not say it directly, but they also want somebody that can come in and influence and support and build up the team they have, because every single company you will ever touch has a mission statement, and within that mission statement is to grow. And if you can add to the value of that team by being an excellent person, being a supportive teammate, and continuing every day to, work on the skills that matter, because all the other technical skills can be taught, you're going to change the game and change the life. And that's the way, Larry, I live. And this is why, let me tell you something. This is why I love Larry so much, because Larry is an incredible, phenomenal human being with an amazing son who's about to tear up this next generation. Like, I'm so glad I'm at this point in my career and that I don't have to compete against him and his son, because Lord have mercy, phenomenal human beings, and they continue everywhere they go. They add value. Every time I see Larry, he's adding value. He's giving back. And if you give, it gets given to you. But you can't lead with, I'm giving to get, because people can see that. People can feel that. Employers can feel that. They can feel when you're desperate. But if you go in and you say, look, I want to support, I see that the job is asking for this, I can absolutely do that. But you ask very pointed questions like, well, what does support for you specifically look like? What are the biggest pitfalls that your team are going? What are the development? Is your team in a developmental period? Is why you're transitioning into this? And if you do your research, you could kind of gauge why the need for the position is there, but understanding how to solve the problem by asking the right questions. Every answer is out there, but it's tied to a very strong and powerful question. So yes, Larry, that stuff is incredibly important. And you could absolutely change your life and change a company's existence by asking the right questions to solve effective problems.
John, thank you. My audio went out when you were talking about me. Could you just repeat that one more time?
You're fantastic, Larry. You're fantastic. That's the synopsis.
No, I appreciate it. And thank you so much. And right back at you. When you were talking, so many things come to mind. And I want to get to one other aspect that I think you alluded to, but could be the most important of all these characteristics, which is having the decision makers become emotionally vested in your success. And I want to, I want to, put a pin in it, so to speak, and come back to that. But I think you hit it right on the head, everything that you said about the most important aspects to land a job. But I do want to get back to having the decision makers become emotionally vested in your success and the best ways to make that happen. So let's turn to Roberto. Roberto, thank you for joining us. And let me tell you, this is the person that you need to hear from. I mean, the whole panel you need to hear from, but he is the gatekeeper at Disney, in terms of those looking to be employed by Disney. So Roberto is a senior recruiter, so you're probably not going to be speaking to him right off the bat, but Roberto is a wealth of knowledge in terms of knowing best practices, worst practices. He's a teacher, a professor. He is on the front lines of dealing with people just like those in the audience today that are trying to break down the door and get an entry-level job. So, Roberto, I want to just go over a couple of worst practices that I've come across in the not too distant past. And I want to get your opinion on that. And also, I want to hear from you your best and worst practices that you've witnessed emanating from those straight out of college. But I'll give you my list. Admitting you're a sports fan. Why do you want to work at ESPN? Oh, I love sports. I know stats. I know everything on any given day. I'll be watching sports from morning till night. The companies are not looking to fulfill your career dreams, your fantasies. They're there to have you move the needle financially. So they're not there to fulfill your dreams. So saying you're a sports fan is probably the easiest way to get out of contention for a job. Number two is not maximizing your time with key decision makers and asking wrong questions. So a couple of weeks ago, not from the University at Albany, because every student at the University of Albany is fantastic and the teachers are wonderful. But I did get correspondence asking me if I knew any jobs in sports in like California, entry-level jobs. And the answer is no. And I think that that's a poor use of maximizing your time. I have plenty of time, so it's not about me. But it's not really maximizing your time with those that are experienced in the industry. And again, it's not about me. I'm happy to talk to anybody for as long as possible. So that's number two. And then number three is I told a friend his daughter could contact me, have her reach out to me tomorrow or the next day. 2 weeks later, she reached out and said, oh, she was so busy and she couldn't, get back to me. So right off the bat, I'm like, okay, I guess I'm not that important. And that was, very impactful for me. So big wind up here on the question, but Roberto, I'm going to throw it to you. Give us some of the best and worst practices you've witnessed emanating from those straight out of college or in college.
Yeah, no. And first off, again, thank you, Larry, and the panel for letting me speak. This is awesome. And I appreciate everything you're doing for the school. Some of the worst practices is not doing your research, right? You're on your phone. I know as a class, you're probably scrolling through Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat a good portion of your day, right? You could check the metrics yourself and see how long you're on those. You got to do your research. I always joke it before we jumped on. I went to a career fair recently. I'm not going to name the school. By far, one of the worst experiences I've had going to career fairs, right? Students would come up to the booth and say, oh, ESPN, where are you guys located? What jobs do you have available for me? I don't know you from anybody, right? It's like asking my wife, what does she want to eat for dinner? Like, it could be anything, right? You got to figure that out on your own, and you have to come to the table with that decision, right? Not doing your research is huge. Larry, to your point, wasting time. I teach at a university, we work on an elevator pitch. And when you come to the table and you're blathering about yourself and has nothing to do with what you want to do in your career and what you're looking to do, you're just wasting our time. I probably only have a minute, 2 minutes with you tops before I move on to the next student. So you want to make sure that when you approach a Larry, a Peter, a Mackenzie, a John, or even a me at a booth or anywhere in public, that you maximize every second that you have with that individual, right? Use an example of a best example. One of the students came to the table and said, cut to the chase, I saw a posting on your career website for a sports analyst position. I applied for the role. Want to let you know, here's my resume, here's my experiences that equate to that position. We immediately put the person in front of the recruiter that was working on that position, right? He knew exactly what he wanted to do. He came prepared. He applied for the position. He was ready to go, right? And other students would come up to the table and they would ask me, "Oh, so what do you do?" I'm a recruiter. Like, do your research. I'm not trying to be annoying about the topic, but I'm speaking to 50, 60 kids. Which ones are actually going to step out and be the kids that I want to stay in contact with, right? So do your research, do your research, do your research. That's the most important thing. The next is the follow-up, right? If you meet a Peter, a Mackenzie, a Larry, or a John, follow up with them. Larry, like you just mentioned, if you're that busy to send an email 2 weeks afterwards, are you really that willing to put yourself forward to get that position? You have to make, especially in sports, you're going to have to make sacrifices in your life to get to where you want to get to. Mackenzie's story is one of many that went to a smaller market or a bigger market to try to get to her dream job. I got rejected from ESPN 4 times and had to commute to New York for an unpaid internship to get back to ESPN and Disney to fulfill that opportunity, right? You're graduating with the University of Albany this year. Congratulations, but then so is every other university at the same time. With that, people are making connections daily, right? Syracuse University and all of the ACC and SEC schools, they have partnerships with ESPN. So those students are already in the control room getting that experience. They're already networking with key leaders across the company. So what are you doing in your current moment now to stand out and be in front of the pack, right? So got to make sacrifices in your career. If it's taking the time out of your day to get off TikTok for an hour and browse careers that are in California and researching who those key leaders are on LinkedIn and sending emails to them, that's what you got to do, right? If it's going to a smaller market to gain that experience, that's what you have to do. But not doing your research and just thinking that because you graduated and you have a degree is going to get you a foot in the door, good luck. Like, you're going to be battling it out with everybody else that's applying for a position. And the last thing I would say is, when I open up a job at ESPN or Disney, and I'm not just saying this to say this, I can get a couple hundred applicants within 2 to 3 days, right? I'm not reviewing every one of those applications that come in. So the people that rise to the top are the folks that are networking. So you got to network, you got to network, and you got to network. So I share this with all of my students, Larry. I share this with you as well. I share this model of networking leads to mentorship, and mentorship leads to sponsorship, right? Who's sponsoring you when you're not in the room? Who's being your advocate for you when you're not in the room? And it all stems back to doing your research, connecting with individuals, and then having them be your sponsor for you. So to sum it all up, do your research, network, and when you get time in front of somebody, maximize that time, right? Don't waste their time. Don't waste your time. Don't cheat the process, right? Don't use ChatGPT to write these emails for you. Take the time to craft everything that you can. Because it's going to come out, right? The truth comes out at the end of the day. So you got to do the work to get in front of somebody.
Roberto, so much there. I have about 6 follow-ups I want to ask you off of what you just talked about, but I'll narrow it down to one, and I'll start with a personal story. When I left the NBA, I was laid off from the NBA, and I was looking for a job, and I was walking through Hoboken. And I always had my resume on me, and it was a Sunday, and I saw, very expensive cars, and I knew somebody famous was eating there, and it turned out it was Governor John Corzine of New Jersey, and I had my resume with me, and I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do, but I knew that I needed to get his attention and start a conversation with him. And right off the bat, I knew elevator pitch. And I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was something like, Hello, I'm Larry Berger. I've been in sports media for 16 years. I worked for the NBA for that entire time. I helped launch programs, seen both domestically and internationally, and helped grow the sport around the world. I'm wondering, is it possible to get an informational interview with you? And that was, I guess an amateurish elevator pitch, but it was what I remember is that I came up with. Could you give an example of, first of all, define elevator pitch and give a sample elevator pitch?
Yeah, that's funny. So in my course, I teach a resume writing cover letter course at the Post University. Unit 5, Unit 6 is a unit course, is an elevator pitch. So I'm sure you guys have access to it. LinkedIn Learning has a great elevator pitch. It's about 45-minute video, and it will tell you if you're a college student, if you're a seasoned professional, how to craft and perfect your elevator pitch. The first thing you want to do is a quick introduction of yourself, right? You're probably going to have 30, 45 seconds max to get in front of somebody and share. And they call it an elevator pitch to dumb it down, because you might catch somebody in an elevator and you have that long to make an introduction to that person and hopefully leave a lasting impression in front of them, right? So it's an introduction of who you are quickly, right? So it's not where you're born and raised. It's not how many brothers and sisters that you have. It's not that you graduated from the University of Albany with a concentration in communications and a specialization in digital media, right? It's quickly who you are, maybe where you went to school, but then exactly what you just said, Larry. What are some quick accolades, right? What have you done in your past that makes you a good fit for whatever role or whatever you're trying to get out of this conversation? And then it's the follow-up, right? Can I set up some time to meet with you in the near future? Can I pass you my resume? Can I get your business card? And then it's the follow-up. Larry, your pitch right there was perfect, to be honest with you, right? It was quick and to the point of who you are, some of your quick accolades, and then the follow-up to that, right? It's like we probably prepped and we didn't on that conversation. But that's truly what it is in a nutshell. The biggest thing you want to do is always make an impression on something, right? So maybe it's finding a commonality, right? Maybe you guys are in an elevator because you're both an alumni of the same school and you're at the same career fair, whatever it might be. You want to find a connection point somewhere, right? So if you're able to do your research on that person while you're walking up to them, Google it. You have a phone in your hand, you're always using it, right? I'm gonna keep going back to that. Quickly find a Google tidbit about that individual. Maybe they went to the same school as you. Maybe they like the same football team as you. Inject that into the conversation and try to make a connection point with them in that capacity.
Outstanding. And that elevator pitch did work. I did meet with the governor at his office and didn't end up getting a job, but I considered it a victory, that I was able to get to bat. And so it was successful, but not easy, especially like when you're put on the spot, you don't know, this person. And, it going through my head, I could still remember it. Like, I want to be, sincere, entertaining, serious, but not too serious, in, 15 seconds, there's so many different things.
Similar to sports. I mean, Steph Curry works on his jump shot and his free throws all day long. Work on your elevator pitch, right? When you're walking to class, practice it. Go up to somebody randomly and just introduce yourself to them. You never know where it might go, but practice. And to Mackenzie's point, always ask for feedback, right? If you have a reel, ask for feedback. If you have an elevator pitch, run it by your career services team and then ask them to critique you, right? And don't be afraid of the change that they're going to say to do. So.
Roberto, so much great information there. And I think to summarize what you were saying before, although harsh, I know it's a fact. Not everybody gets a trophy. Not everybody, gets their dream job or is in sports for their entire career. So, I guess this is really in its simplest form. You got to take it seriously. You got to outwork everybody, and you have to, be smart, have a game plan, and to be smart. Peter, I feel like we haven't spoken in a half hour. I know you oversee a huge staff. Correct me if I'm wrong. In terms of the Super Bowl, you're in charge of approximately 10,000 people. So it's probably pretty accurate or close to being accurate. But I want to ask you, what attributes impress you the most in somebody that you lead? What is it about a certain person that impresses you the most when you look at your staff and look at all those people that you manage?
Yeah, fortunately, I'm not managing 10,000 on a daily basis. That balloons for Super Bowl, but there's a large group, and it's an interesting time of year that we're in right now. I'm in the midst of writing reviews right now and reviewing reviews and compensation period. And it's always an interesting time because I go back to what John said before, delivering your core skill and meeting your core objectives important, but the stuff that differentiates, the stuff that stands out to me, the stuff that impresses me is, no matter the level, no matter the age, the person who makes that transition from individual contributor to leader. And some people see the word leader as, oh, I got to be a senior person. There are people on our team at, 21, 22 years of age who I see or make that transition right after coming into the NFL. And what does that mean? That means they're thinking beyond themselves. They're thinking about exactly what John and others were saying before. Where can I add value? Where, put in a very, kind of extreme way, where's the fire? And I'm going to run to it because I know that there's something that's got to be solved in this organization. So the people that I'm thinking about, and I've been, writing a bunch of reviews today, are those people who are going beyond their core role and doing it in a way that is beyond themselves and is selfless in terms of, I'm going to do that extra thing, not just because I think my boss's boss wants to see it, but that's the right thing. Or we also use the term mentor. That's got to be a senior person. There are people coming in, the younger people on our team who are mentoring interns and taking the time to really make the place better. We use the term culture carrier a lot, and it's kind of who's on our team that's really just making that team better and spending the time to do that. And it's all that little stuff that impresses me. It's attitude, it's having each other's backs, it's anticipating and hustle. It's the stuff that we all learned early on, where it's like doing those little things, and that makes it stand out. So for me, we've hit on a lot of these things before, but it's not the skills that's going to separate you. It is this ability to think beyond yourself and think about and be curious. The people on our team who are curious and asking those additional questions and saying, can I get involved in that? I'm going to raise my hand for that. Those are the attributes that distinguish you. Those are the things that take you from one lane to a whole set of lanes. A lot of industries are like this, and I think the people on the Zoom can attest, everything in the sports world is interconnected. You may think, okay, I'm doing this function and that's my little world. The more you can understand how all the parts connect and how you can help those parts connect more, that's going to be better off. So just kind of take those blinders off and think beyond yourself. And those are the attributes that I'm drawn to.
Outstanding. And I would imagine, Peter, self-confidence is really important when you're 21 or 22 and, really taking on that leadership role. I would imagine that, the strongest attribute would have to be self-confidence, that you're able as a newcomer, to the NFL, to be able to take on such a mature role. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, you certainly need self-confidence, but self-confidence comes in many forms. It's not, that's not about coming in and saying, to the point Mackenzie was making, it's not, I got all the answers and here's the deal and I'm going to connect all these dots. It's finding those places where I'm listening and learning, and those places where your head on a swivel of like, okay, here's how I can help. Here's how I can help my friend and teammate. Here's how I can help up, down, and sideways. Yes, self-confidence and being, we've all got a little imposter syndrome in us, and like, what are we doing here? I just started working at the NFL. How can I, figure all this out? So you gotta give that pep talk in the mirror that I deserve to be here, and I can crush this moment. And we all do that at whatever level we're in. But you need to have that self-confidence, but not cross a line that goes, into, into arrogance, or, I've made it, and, now I'm gonna, just flaunt it. It's that balance. You got to be humble and mix that with some strong, intestinal fortitude or self-confidence.
Excellent. John, in its most basic form, you're hired to do two things, and it's much more nuanced than this, but really to move the needle financially, for your company, and to make your boss look good. I know there's many more ingredients, but those are two key ones.
Yeah.
And also, to be able to do that, you have to have, like we spoke about before, have the decision maker become emotionally vested in your success. I know you agree with the importance of that. What must somebody do for you to become emotionally vested in their success?
The biggest thing, Larry, is they're thinking, to Peter's point, beyond themselves and beyond the job. I can't tell you how, I'm talking to students, so I'm going to say it a very different way, but how annoying it can be, and frustrating it can be to have somebody so obsessed with themselves and where they want to be. That's all they talk about. Oh, I did this and I did that and I did that. And they think that that is the way to gain the trust and attraction of someone in the place where they want to be. When it's, I speak, I've been blessed to speak in different companies around the world, and I tell them the same thing. It's very cool that you know how to do that cool thing. But what's better is that you know how to come in and learn and figure out where you can come in and immediately help. Because the truth of the matter is this way. Like, I grew up playing basketball in Brooklyn. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. So I grew up playing basketball in a city where every child had a basketball. And if you thought you can dribble, somebody else could dribble too. If you can dunk and you were 5'5", yeah, there's a kid on the other side, of the train tracks that can do the same thing too. And what that taught us was basically, you have to understand that there will be a time where you might be the best in the room, but there's also many times when you're not the best person in the room. And how do you add value even though you're not skilled like the highest person in the room? Because the truth of the matter is, you're going to come in and you're going to be at the bottom. Because your boss is your boss because they got good and they're not trusted to be a boss. The CEO is trusted on a level that you can't even fathom to push multi-billion-dollar companies. It's way more important. And the question is, how did they get here? Here's the thing. When you get promotion, is a full 100% trust that this person can do the job. Hiring is full 100% trust that this person can come in and execute, but not just execute the responsibilities, execute as a teammate and can add value to the environment. It is so difficult because, again, we can teach you skills. I can teach you how to edit, how to hold a camera, how to put together stories, but what I can't teach you is how to understand when that's not important, but your teammate's health is. When it's not important, but you supporting and jumping in to help somebody that may not understand and know as much as you do, and reaching out and being a teammate and lifting them up, which makes everything else in the business a lot better because the team is functioning, how much more value that brings. So it's this understanding of, it's not about you, even when you think it is. It's about, hey, how can I help? That's the question I ask 10 million times a day. And Rob will tell you how many people I send his way on a weekly basis. Like, sometimes he texts me and is like, I have a wife and kids, right? You know that, right? I have a family, right? And I'm like, I'm really sorry. This person is phenomenal. And the way that they get to having that impression on me, Larry, is there is this investment where they spend time trying to understand the nuances of how to add value to a company by asking the right questions. They ask questions like, well, how did they trust you to do that? How did you end up doing this when I see a lot of people not able to, or, maybe this isn't on your resume? And they ask the questions that are not about them, but things that they can learn. Be a person that's always learning, and you ask questions to learn. Don't just sit there and put your elevator pitch and turn it into an hour-long monologue. Stop, ask questions, and you'll get the answers where you can fit. Okay, I'm a fit to support. I can do this. I can help you with this. The more you ask, how can I help? The more somebody's going to fall in love with you.
Just listening to you, John, I had to chuckle because I basically violated everything you said not to do. That's what I did in my my job interview with Don Sperling at the NBA. I mentioned, you know, he went to Albany, but I went in there for an interview and I told him, you know, well, I interned at MSG Network and I interviewed at WWOR TV and I was the sports director of the college radio station in Albany, New York. And he looks at me, he goes, wow, Larry, so then you can pretty much run the NBA at this point. And it was at that point, I'm like, okay, you proved your point. I ended up getting the job, but you're so right. You're absolutely 100% right about, you know, being humble and not going over all of your incredible accomplishments at the age of 22 and all of that. So I think you hit the nail on the head, and it's outstanding advice. We have about 10 more minutes until we get to the Q&A. But I want to talk, Mackenzie, I want to talk to you about the importance of having complementary skills as opposed to duplicatory skills. And in particular, for the younger people, social media. You know, a lot of people that are in a position, or, you know, some people that are in the position to hire, you know, may be a little bit older and may not know the best ways to reach the consumers who are a younger audience. And I want to ask you, A, do you agree with that? And B, talk about some of the complementary skills that a younger person straight out of college can provide an organization that maybe they don't have because, quite frankly, they're a little bit older and don't know how to reach the younger audience.
Yeah, absolutely. Off your point, Larry, it is so important, in my opinion, nowadays to be very well-versed in social media, whether that's Instagram, Twitter, well, X now. And I'm trying to think for me, honestly, those are the two big ones. I don't personally use Facebook much anymore. I usually, you know, use that for family stuff, but I would say Instagram, X, YouTube Shorts is huge. Just being able to navigate your way through social media, knowing how to reach out to the right people, connecting with the right athletes, PR folks, and being able to know how to navigate that is huge. And also knowing how to promote yourself in the right way. As you guys know, a lot of stuff lives on social media. The NBA is pretty much just lives on Instagram and X. You'll see stuff on the NFL on social media, but I don't know. I just feel like it's huge knowing how to navigate that world. For me personally, I found a lot of success through social media because of it. With our job, Larry, as you know, we do a lot of social reaction pieces. We also do a lot of stuff on our show based on social stuff. We'll do a NBA Twitter verified, for example. So we'll go on we'll go onto Reddit or X and we'll find threads, and then we'll talk about it and we'll dive deeper into conversations surrounding those pieces. And a lot of traditional media companies like USA Today, ESPN does a really good job of this, but just speaking on my company, USA Today, you do have a lot of older folks that are higher up, and they very much rely on our team, our video team, to be very well versed in social media, to be able to drive those conversations, because if you're not on social media nowadays, what are you doing, you know, to be honest? So it's huge. And even if Instagram isn't really your thing, maybe go for X or Twitter or vice versa. But even if not, I very much encourage you to find a lane that works for you. And if it's not promoting yourself for on-camera stuff, it's posting your projects that you've done for directing or editing, what have you. So a lot of ways that you can grow on social media. And I think I answered your question, Larry, but it's huge. That's as much.
No doubt about it. And you talk about promoting yourself. You know, it could be a whole different conversation, but the art of the humble brag, especially on LinkedIn, you know, for those that are looking for jobs, it's really an art form. Getting the point across about what you've accomplished, who you've interviewed, what content you've created without sounding arrogant. You know, so getting the point across, getting it, you know, to your network, but also doing it in a way that makes you sound humble. So, I mean, I'm sure you could teach a course on humble bragging, because, you know, it's vitally important, you know, especially on LinkedIn, you know, to show those in the industry, you know, what you've accomplished. John, I know we spoke about this earlier, but everything that this panel, and again, an absolutely outstanding panel, incredibly skilled, wonderful people, they've brought up so many great tidbits of advice on how to get the job, how to get the entry-level job. And you could do everything right and still not get the prize. And you could hear no over and over and over and over again. And at some point, it's going to affect your mental health. And John, as the founder of ESPN Trust, which concentrates on mental health and mental health first aid, what advice do you have, especially for those who haven't experienced rejection over and over and over again? What's the best advice you could give to them to try to be as mentally healthy as possible?
I think, Larry, the big thing is when my co-founders and we came up with it, I asked the question, and the question was, could it be possible that we are the only ones? And it wasn't a question to be answered. It was rhetorical, and the answer was, there's no way that we are the only ones that feel this way. There's no way that everyone smiling is okay. There's no way that everyone that is in the form of success that you deem success, that they got there, they woke up, and everything that they did was correct. It's impossible. So the question is, how do we navigate the no's and understanding? There's twofold. The first part of that is, I need to understand where I am and remember who I am. And I say that in with the full understanding of, hey, you may feel like you don't have enough experience, but you have enough experience to date that can qualify you somewhere, especially when you're graduating. And the second thing is, you must understand that this job is not the end all be all. This next position, it does not define you. It does not, it is not who you are. It's not the definition of who you are. So if you get a no, it doesn't mean that you're not good enough. It means that maybe, one, I'm not ready to receive that, but I may be ready to receive something else. Or two, okay, what can I add to my skill set? Because the hardest thing you could ever hear when you feel like, and it's worse when you're so close. It's worse when the interview goes really great and you've connected and there's a vibe there and you get there and the answer is no at the end. It's really, really easy to say, you know what, maybe this isn't for me. I've been there, I've said it, I've done it. But I had to remember that I am there to support and add value. And I know that it is my God-given right to support and to be in this space. So when you get the no's, feel what you feel, understand, and do not shy away from it, because the more you ignore it and act like it doesn't exist, it's going to compound, it's going to hurt, and you're eventually going to implode on yourself. No, have a conversation with somebody you trust and release. I'm a big proponent of, teletherapy. I do talk space every Thursday, because even at the highest level, you still need to have a conversation about what's going on up here. And it's because what's up here will affect and change absolutely everything. So it's have a conversation with those you trust, take a break, and realize that just because you got this no doesn't mean it's a permanent no. No is short for not yet. It's just, they just forgot to put the rest of the letters in a sentence together. And the more you continue to say, not yet, but it's coming, not yet, you must shift the things in your mind, apply mental health practices, step away. if you're applying to 50 jobs a day, I applied to get to ESPN relentless, the jobs I wasn't even qualified for. What in the world, Larry, am I doing in statistics? Larry, you know I don't like statistics on that level. But I was trying to take the test. There was tons of things I was trying to do. And from an emotional standpoint, I went through the worst period of my life because I said, what in the world was this 4-year degree for? What was this master degree for them to tell me no? You told me to do this. You told me to go to school and do this, and now you're telling me no. What was the point? No, and the point is you have that set of experience now. Where do I go and apply that? So take your breaks, have a conversation with somebody, release and talk to somebody that you trust and get that off your heart and your mind. And then remember, no is short for not yet. They just forgot the other letters. That's it.
Outstanding advice. And for anybody in this industry for an extended period of time, we all know the importance of mental health. And, I think you brought up an excellent point. You are not alone. Okay. If you're dealing with mental health, issues because of your career or for any matter, for any reason, you are not alone. And hopefully that provides some comfort to those that are struggling. We're going to get to the Q&A very quickly. I know I'm 1 minute behind, but I have to ask Roberto one question about something that he spoke about earlier. He touched on Syracuse. But if you don't go to Syracuse, like if you go to the university at Albany, how do you penetrate and how do you get on the radar of the key decision makers if you don't go to Syracuse?
Full transparency, I'm a huge North Carolina Tar Heel fan, so I hate Syracuse. But in all honesty, and all jokes aside, one of the things, and a mentor shared this with me, always say yes to an opportunity, right? Always say yes to an opportunity. You never know where it's going to lead. So right now, if you're in school, if you're a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, take advantage of one, start with your school. Take advantage of every opportunity that's available at your school system, right? If you have a student-run television station, join that. If you have a professor that's in the industry, network with that individual. If there's a career services team, go to them. Have them check out your resume. If there's a radio station at your school, join it. If you want to be on air, go to English class, become a strong writer, and then work on your craft, right? Everybody's covering football, basketball, and baseball. Find a sport that maybe somebody's not covering, right? And go and volunteer and be their beat reporter, right? Maybe it's the swim team, maybe it's the track team, right? The sports that don't seem as sexy as everything else in that capacity, right? So work your tail off in school to build up your resume. As you build that experience, start using your connections in LinkedIn to your advantage, right? Do your research, follow the job postings for the various different organizations you want to work for, whether that's the NFL, USA Today, ESPN, NBC Sports, and start tracking down who the key leaders are in those spaces, right? You'll see recruiters post the same jobs, usually around the same avenues of what they're looking to fill. Hiring managers are usually active on those as well. Hey, I'm looking for my next production assistant to help me out with this, whatever it might be. Be very calculated in your email when you reach out to them, right? Similar to your elevator pitch. Don't waste time to say, what do you have for me? But flip it. Hey, I saw you posted this. Here's my skill sets. Can I have 15 minutes to learn more about you and your team, right? Someone's going to be more inclined to answer you back if you're actually targeted with your approach and really responsive to what they're looking for that. The last thing is get out in the community and volunteer, right? When ESPN was in my backyard, I was figuring out ways to get there. I got rejected from ESPN 4 times interview-wise, but application-wise, thousands. But I was going wherever ESPN was, I was going and I was just trying to network with people, right? If I saw a camera operator that had an ESPN t-shirt on at a sporting event, I went immediately in beeline to that person and just started asking them questions, right? So get out there, go to events, try to find those key players and start putting them out there. And it's all about networking. It goes back to that, right? Once you find that person, now it's when you want to get advice from that individual. So to John's point, you might get rejected from a job, which it might crush you, but be truly and honest with yourself, right? This is about how to land a job in sports. And I'm going back to sports of live sports, right? If Steph Curry missed a game-winning shot, he's probably going to go and review that tape to see what he could have did better on that play to shoot that shot again, right? I'm sure players that lost the Super Bowl are going back to review this game film to figure out what they could have done better in that game to get better the next time around, right? So in your approach, what did you do in the interview process? What questions did you stumble upon? Did you send a thank you email after the interview was done? Did you ask for feedback if you got rejected? Did you stay connected with that individual that interviewed you to stay connected, right? There's a series of steps that you need to take to keep the connections going. So I'm trying to speak fast because I know we're coming up on time, but just a few points there. Just network, use your platforms, use social media. People are posting, get in their DMs, be very calculated how you approach the people's DMs and say, here's a value add. I saw you posted this. I'm a great video editor. Can I create your next highlight for you? I'll do it for free. Like, give me a shot, right? So be a little bit bold in your actions there.
Outstanding advice. Outstanding. All right. So we have about 10 minutes to get to some of the questions. First one is from Brandon, and I'll send this one to Mackenzie. So Brandon, thanks to panel. I have so many nuggets that I'll be taking with me. So thank you again. You're welcome, Brandon, on behalf of the panel. My question is, what advice would you give your younger self? Hold on, I just lost the, wow, so many questions. What advice would you give your younger self, Mackenzie, in sports media? What would you tell yourself looking back, you know, let's say a 10-year-old Mackenzie about the industry and your career?
Honestly, my biggest piece of advice would be to trust the process. When I was just getting out of college, I was so nervous because I didn't know what to expect. I would compare myself to a lot of people that I looked up to. And one saying that I love is comparison is the thief of joy. And of course, you know, when you're looking up to somebody who you want to emulate or somebody you eventually want to surpass, you're going to try and compare yourself. But my biggest piece of advice would be to own your skills, be as true to yourself as you can, because, you know, for me personally, I don't see myself as somebody who is, you know, behind the desk. This person dropped 42 points tonight. For me, I'm more of a conversationalist. I love being very, very creative, having those conversations, and, you know, that's just not me. So being able to really hone in on my skills and to practice being the best that I can at what I do, you know, served me a lot better than if I were to try and fit myself into a box where I just knew I wasn't going to be happy, first and foremost, and also just, you know, in a position where kind of setting myself up for failure because I know that's not what I want to do with my life, or if that's not, you know, where my skill set is. So I would honestly tell my younger self to trust the process, you know, be willing to learn, do the best that I can, and make as many network with as many people as possible, going back to what you said, Roberto.
Next question is from Valmaria. Roberto, Valmaria often uses Teamwork Online, which is a great site. Buffy Philippel has been running that site forever, and she does a fabulous job. I think she's placed over 100,000 people in careers in sports. So that's a great site. But Valmaria wants to know, Roberto, are there any other sites that you can suggest that are similar to Teamwork Online? Or if you want to, yes, that's really the question. Anything similar to Teamwork Online that you would recommend?
Yeah, that site's great. I actually used it as well when I was going through my career search. So great website there. I always say list the companies that you're looking to target, right, and go directly to their career site. LinkedIn's a great way to get alerts that jobs are popping up. But when you go to apply for a job, whether it's the New York Knicks, MSG, ESPN, NBC Universal, go directly to their career site. Apply early and apply as soon as you see the position come up. Make it a habit, right? When you wake up in the morning, I would have bookmarks of all those sites and just check what new roles are posted and be ready to apply for those positions as soon as they come available. Sometimes those websites are a little bit delayed, right? So they might post it a week after they're posted and you're already behind the 8 ball, right? Because I could mention you might be 300 applicants in at that point. So if you could go directly to the specific websites that or teams that or organizations that you're looking to hire, get into, that's what I would recommend. But sports biz camps is another one. They're great. They aggregate a lot of roles, teamwork on or sports teamwork online. And then there's a TikTok channel I was following. I want to see if they're posting my stuff. That's why I was following them. But they post a lot of sports jobs, which is really cool. It's some person who's just trying to get their following, but they're doing a great job of it. I just don't know their name. But there's a TikTok that aggregates a lot of this stuff too. So
I would say, and also work in sports is really good as well. Roberto, you talk about 300 applicants for a job. How many job postings are already filled? You know, what percentage of job postings are already filled by the time they post them?
It's a loaded question. That's a loaded question. I'll give you the stat here. I actually just shared this with somebody this morning. 3 years ago, I think it was, ESPN shared a stat with us. For our summer internship, we had 77 positions available. 15,000 people applied for 77 positions. Of those 77, I think 12 were executive referrals or something like that. So you do the math, there's 15,000 applicants really for 60 positions or so. So it really depends, right? If it's an entry-level role like ESPN Next, which is a great program for individuals to get into if they're looking to be a producer in the sports landscape, we hire a lot of applicants at once. Those are usually folks that have been networking or connecting, but it's an open shot there. But if it's a senior level role, we've been communicating and networking with folks. So sometimes those are earmarked for somebody, in that capacity, but it truly depends on the position and what we're looking to fill at that time. So.
And I think that plays perfectly into mental health, and John in particular. We talk about mental health with you here. If you get turned down a lot, you just look at the numbers that Roberto is citing, and it's not so crazy, that you're not getting the opportunity when those odds are so stacked against the everybody, so maybe that helps also with those that aren't getting the position. Justin wants to know from Peter, Justin's dream job would be a scout or part of a coaching management spot on an NFL team. Justin is wondering what would be a great way to start off for a job in that specific industry, as well as maintain the job that you already have.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think that a lot of what Roberto was saying before of start in your local environment and those opportunities to get reps, those opportunities, whether it's at your school or otherwise, or spending the time to be in the mix to just, there are not a lot of just, NFL teams hiring people straight out as scouts. So there are a lot of men and women who had opportunities at the high school and college level and got real reps in understanding the game. And I think we've done a lot better job, and so have many other leagues and otherwise, of just creating much bigger forums to bring together those people who are getting those reps at the high school and college level. Analytics is such a huge part of the scouting community now. And we just came from the scouting combine. We had a huge analytics competition where we crowdsourced opportunities to rethink real parts of our game and playing rules. Those are great opportunities to show your ideas, bring your passion to the table, and then be in the same space as a lot of people, both NFL and team personnel and people like you who are in similar situations. So those type of opportunities are real. And then I think, like I said before, the industry is so connected that you may say, scouting is my thing. I got to get in on scouting. There are people with whom I work at the NFL now who are on a scouting kind of player personnel GM track, and they came in through other angles and then got the opportunity to get closer to it. So those are, I had that mindset when I was coming out of school as well. Like, this is what I want to do. This is the narrow lane of what defines a job in sports. It's so much wider than that. And finding those ways to get those opportunities. People who reach out to me who say, I know the draft's in Detroit this year. I know you're rallying teammates to work and do all kinds of jobs. If I find myself in Detroit, can I support you in some way? That's a win. That's someone who did their research. Know we have an opportunity. We bring people in, and that then suddenly you're at the draft and you are working across with NFL people for 3 days there. And, you may not be tied to scouting, but you were in the ultimate outcome of scouting. You got a lot of people who are in that world. That's a great, just little, I just connected someone the other day who totally cold reached out to me and is now going to be at the draft in Detroit, working on our fan experience, but they are in the mix and they're getting reps.
Can I just add to Peter's
Outstanding.
point there? Just add to Peter's point there. Join conferences too and associations, right? So MIT Sloan, Peter, I don't know if you attended that conference, right? But if you can get to those conferences, NEBJA, JA, NHJ, whatever conference it might be, try to get there. I know they cost some dollars. Sometimes there's student discounts available, but that's where the key players are going to be. And they're going there for one reason, to network and hire people, right? That's the main reason they're there. So join and go and connect with folks.
Outstanding advice, outstanding input, great stories. I want to thank Roberto Muchacharo, Peter O'Reilly, Mackenzie Salmon, John McLeod. Thank you all for your time. And thank you to the University at Albany students who had some great questions. There's so many questions in there. It was not easy to pick out the ones to ask, but there's so many insightful questions that are in there. We appreciate that. And we appreciate your time. And again, panelists, thank you so much again for taking the time to speak to the students at the University at Albany. Melissa, thank you for the opportunity, and I'm going to send it right back to you.
Well, okay. Thank you. I can't really add too much. This was fabulous. I do a lot of these panels. This was great. It was informative. I appreciate all of you being so candid. I think it was just packed with information for our students. I've already had a couple text me how much they've gotten out of it. So thank you all. I hope you all have a great night, and appreciate you being here. Take care,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you guys. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.